Hey guys, there is so much buzz out there about how we as the people need to come together. And then in the same breath, we use words as weapons and we turn against one another. In today's episode, I bring forth the idea that, hey, if we can collectively agree that the quality of our lives will always have a relationships and connection aspect to it, then let's pulse check the relationships we have in our lives with these 5 essential connection elements. All relationships go through seasons. In fact, that's actually the beautiful part about them because we're supposed to grow and evolve, and we were created to do that alongside one another. A few weeks ago, I actually posted a LinkedIn article about these 5 tips, and it got a number of hits and engagements. So I was like, figured, hey, why not turn it into a podcast? So here we are today. And I will tell you that for as much love and wonderful things that can come from relationships, they also seem to be one of the things that causes the most heartache in our lives. And I think about people who, like, I thought I could trust, and they were the ones who hurt maybe me so deeply, or the people who we thought our relationships with in adulthood would look so different than they do today. Now, I did a episode with friends episode a few weeks back with Emily, who brought up this idea that so many of us are totally burnt out in our relationships. And the moment she said this, I had this aha moment around how she was so absolutely right. And in that episode, which aired August 6th, I believe, of 2024, if you're interested in checking it out, we just discussed the ways to navigate through relationships as they're changing and to really look inward during that process too. So today, I want to look at relationships from the viewpoint of connection and share 5 different elements that have helped me unjuggle connection with others. So these 5 elements, there's just 5 of many that are out there. These are just 5 that I've seen position my own relationships to be those that are deeply connected. And this is at work and at home and in broader social circles too. So I'm going to present these as questions because, again, maybe selfishly here, this is like the way I talk to myself. Like, I'm constantly doing a pulse check with my own relationships and asking myself these questions to ensure that I'm creating the type of relationships that fuel my life and add abundance to it versus the opposite. So, first element, are you showing up as your authentic self? Yes, in business, in personal, with self, like, there is so much power to showing up authentically. When we break down the barriers of trying to measure up to everyone else's standards and we approach relationships from a place of truth, that's where we actually create and we foster space for growth. A quick little story here. Like, I was in my 20s and I had spent most of my young career approaching all of my relationships from a place of, like, oh, this is who I'm supposed to be if you want, like, fill in the blank. So if I want to excel in management, this is who I have to show up as. If I want peers to like me, this is who I'm supposed to show up as. If I want to land bigger clients, this is how I'm supposed to show up. Like, I was so busy wearing the masks of everybody else's expectations that I forgot just one basic human, or one basic truth, and that's that we're all human. So it wasn't until I actually saw, and how beautiful of a gift, like, to have it reflected back, but it wasn't until I actually saw somebody else showing up as her authentic self that I realized how powerful it can be to just simply be human, and how much of an instant connection that alone can create with others, because we're all living the human experience together. What? I know, sounds crazy. It's truth. It's just truth. So whereas I used to think like it was too taboo maybe to say something like, hey, oh, how's your morning going? They're like, oh, good. How are you? And you I used to maybe think that it would be taboo to say something like, yeah, my morning, well, I got thrown up on by my toddlers. We were walking out of the house for school. So I've had better mornings. And it's so crazy, like how in the spaces where I was willing to go first with that kind of just life experience, then all of a sudden, their standard default answer of like, oh, I'm good, it would turn into something like, stop it. That happened to me just last week. It ruined my whole day because then my coffee spilled on my shirt. And then I was in the bathroom under the dryer for 10 minutes trying to get it out. And then I had this meeting, blah, 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 and boom, like you've tapped into now a slew of other things that you guys can connect on. So tap into your authentic self, show people the real you, and you may be surprised how quickly your connections grow. It's so beautiful. I love it. All right. So the number two, like question I asked myself is, are you willing to be held accountable? Relationships are like soul contracts. So we learn to expect certain behaviors from the other party, and they learn to expect certain behaviors from us. Now, disclaimer here that growth is required in all relationships. So by no mean are like expectations intended ever to be confining. So my clients, for instance, they become invested with their time and their money as much as my own. And I have a responsibility to hold myself accountable for my side of the relationship, deliver what I said I would deliver, or take responsibility and do it right. In the same way that my clients are accountable to use to hold up their side of the deal too. So maybe here in like going back to corporate, like in staffing, if my client claimed that they had a safe place for a contractor to work, then they would be held accountable for doing so. In coaching, my clients are responsible for putting in the small actions to create big changes in their life. They must take accountability for taking the actions that only they have control over. So accountability keeps the soul contracts sacred. Number three, how effectively do you communicate? Newsflash, even the best of us high achievers are not mind readers. I know, another like mic drop moment, right? So often we all experience this, like the quality of our relationships, it comes down to our ability to communicate verbally and non-verbally. And this is so big. Fun fact, did you know that statistics show that upwards of 75% of all communication is nonverbal? Yeah, let that one sink in, Mr. or Mrs. Always has your arms crossed when you disagree. Or like this is a sticky subject too, but sure, I'll go there because, why not? If you're not having team calls with your virtual team on camera, then you're quite literally missing upwards of 75% of the communication that's actually happening. You know how much longer it's going to take you to get the job and the team aligned and done if you're missing 75% of the communication just because your butt won't get on video? I'm just saying, hashtag math. Math. Okay. So be able to communicate like what you want, what you need, what you expect, and then be prepared to listen to what the other party wants, needs, and expects too. Communication basics, like I'm totally going to do an upcoming episode because it's just so vital. It's just so crazy how folks like we communicate with day in and day out, that there seems to just be so like so many difficulties with just basic social communication. So it's okay. More to come. I got you. I got you. All right. So number 4 here, essential to relationships and building connection. The number 4 question that I ask myself is, are you willing to give and receive grace? And remember that part I mentioned about being human? Yeah. That means we're never going to get it all right. And the other participating party in the relationship, they're not going to either. Like being able to extend grace, it creates a space for creative solutions to be birthed and for wrongs to be made right and whole again. While I've become much more willing to extend grace, it does still amaze me sometimes how much I still have to be really intentional about receiving grace. I think that that's totally a tendency of a high achiever. Like we're always way harder on ourselves than anyone else will ever be. We're all still growing, right? But grace. So I've experienced where grace flat out saved one of the most important relationships in my life, my marriage. And I think I've like briefly mentioned it, but for just context here, it was our second year of marriage, and we were just not communicating. There was so much finger pointing and so many misunderstandings that even after, I think at this point we would have been together like 10 years of being in the intimate relationship together. During this season, we were just at wits' end. And after we attempted counseling and after months of not sleeping in the same bed, we were both done and absolutely got to the crossroads of, I don't want this anymore. And then grace. Grace saved my marriage. We made a last ditch effort and attended a marriage event at the church. And during that time, like we were poured into and we heard all of the messages on our hearts that we needed to about things like from now on, which basically is just a short of like, hey, stop trying to work out the baggage. Let's just focus from now on. And other messages like we're chosen, like we chose each other. We've chosen this life. This has been chosen for us. We're chosen in God's terms too. Like just keeping God's grace woven into our marriage and the grace we give and receive one another, in the grace that we gave each other in the months to come, it would be the foundation that we stand on today. So grace, just being willing, just a little bit of grace can go a long way. And then number 5 question that I ask is, are you a champion for their success? The people cheering you on, like they tend to be the same people that adore you the most, aren't they? Can you imagine extending that kind of support to all of your relationships? Like the way that someone can make you feel when they are just genuinely happy for you. So, why not radiate more of that kind of love and support and connection out into the world, right? Especially when people least expect it. The smallest gesture of encouragement or celebration of the other person, it is like gas to a flame. It can create a ripple effect far beyond anything you may ever recognize. For example, I'm still a total sucker for a handwritten note sent to a team member or a client or a new encounter. Like whenever I write one, I just imagine them opening up and then later getting to show like their other colleagues or their families and the pride that they feel in being able to do so just because someone else was willing to champion and celebrate them. So if you appreciate someone and can let them know, or if you can give someone else like a way to go, buddy, do it. Like your relationships need that little boost of connection, and that's just one way that you can do it. So, wrapping all this up, unjuggling relationships and how we can create more deeper connection. Pulse check your relationships and ask yourself the 5 questions. Am I showing up as my authentic self? Am I willing to be held accountable? Am I effectively communicating? Am I willing to give and receive grace? And am I a champion for their success? And this goes for yourself, your family, your friends, your peers, your clients, etc. And if you notice an area that's lacking, the only thing you got to do is just be intentional about making a small shift, because those small shifts, it's like a ripple effect. It can have a big impact as you let it grow. So your relationships depend on it. And before I let you go, if you want to take a deep dive into your relationships further, there is an entire self-directed e-course that I have called Authentic Relationships, where we look at a set of relationships truths, and then we talk tools, tips, techniques just to build wildly connected, passionate, deep, and fulfilling relationships. So if that's of interest to you, please visit brittanytalinci.com/coaching. I'll go ahead and link it in the show notes and submit your inquiry form today to gain that paid access to that e-course. So until next time, I'll see you on socials or in other spots. Reach out anytime. Bye.